Yo, what's up, guys? What an absolutely wild day one of the NFL draft. I had so much fun, and today is Friday, so we'll have day two later today. I'm going to give you guys grades on every single pick here in the first round, starting with the Panthers at 1. Bryce Young, I'm giving them an A, and the scale is probably going to go from A plus to F minus. I'm giving the Panthers an A here. You know, they got their franchise quarterback, and I think he's going to be a generational QB, so I'm happy for them. It sucks that he's going to the NFC South, but it is what it is. I'm going to root for him outside of Saints games. I like Bryce Young a lot. And then at 2 with the Texans, I'm giving them an A+. I think this should have been the pick the entire time. The Will Anderson stuff was a smokescreen, but as we learned the pick later, it wasn't a smokescreen. So I'm giving them an A+ there at 2, and then I'm giving them an A- at 3, only because they gave up their first round pick next year, so they're basically banking on being good and not trash like they've been in the past. I think that they can be good, especially with these 2 additions, and they have plenty of picks, you know, in the rest of the draft, so it's not like they gave up that much, and they still have a first round pick from, I believe, it might be the Browns next year still, from that Deshaun Watson trade. So there's still a lot of potential there, and they still have capital. So I'm going to give that Will Anderson one an A-. And then at 4 with the Colts, I'm going to give them an A- too. And that's just because it's just a risky pick. It's a good pick, so I'm still giving them an A. But I'm throwing that minus in there because he's a boomer or bust player. So we'll see what happens. I think he does start year 1. I'm not even sure Gardner Minshew even starts 1 game, honestly. And I'm excited about that. I think he will help improve the run game there. And I think that they'll have some deep bombs. And then maybe they'll draft a quarterback day 2 or day 3. With the Seahawks at 5, you know, I heard this before it happened a few times, and I always thought it was intriguing. And, you know, it just makes too much sense. I don't know how I didn't really mock this. Best cornerback in the draft. They pick him up. Got to be an A there. 6 with the Cardinals. Paris Johnson Jr. They traded up from 12 after trading down from 3. So as far as I know, they moved back from 3, moved to 12. They got a first round pick next year. They got a second round pick this year, and maybe a third round pick too. And then they ended up moving back up to 6 from 12, in which all they had to give up was their second round pick this year, which to me, moving up 6 spots from 12 to 6 is, you know, a great trade for them. So I think they got a lot of value, especially to get, you know, someone their quarterback wanted and someone that's going to help their team when they have a lot of holes. With all that being said, I'm going to give them an A. At 7 with the Raiders, you know, there's a lot of players left here. Tyree Wilson was always in the conversation, but he just hasn't proved enough for me to give them an A. I'm going to give him a B- here. I'm going to have to see it to believe it with Tyree Wilson. You know, he looks like a freak. He could be a freak. He has high potential. But, you know, there were some corners there and they needed a corner. Some might even say they could have went Will Levis, but obviously he fell to the second round. So who knows? Maybe they'll get him in the second. But I'm going to give that a B-. And then the Falcons at 8, I'm giving them a B. I think that they could have gone many other positions here, especially cornerback or even edge. But they went running back, and obviously this is a generational running back, so you can't grade any lower than a B in my opinion, especially with the way their offense is built. He's going to succeed. And once again, that scares me in the NFC South, being a Saints fan. But I'm giving them a B there. And the B is mainly because they had Tyler Algier. So I don't know what they're going to do with him, but now they have Robinson. At 9, Eagles, they're getting an A+. They moved up, only giving away a 4th round pick. Now they were already at 10, but to me, that's a bad move by the Bears. And the Eagles get, you know, the player they wanted all along in Jalen Carter, probably the best player in the draft. So the A+ for them. And then at 10 with the Bears, I'm going to give the Bears a C. I was not a fan of this pick, especially with some of the players still available. I still think that Jalen Carter could have succeeded in Chicago. I also think that Peter Skoronski would have been a better pick over Darnell Wright, even though Darnell Wright's more of a pure tackle. And I know I made the mock before saying Paris should go to the Bears, but I think it was either if Paris was gone, I think it should have been Skoronski, but so they're getting a C for me. 11, the Titans. You know, Rand Carthen's first draft. He picks Peter Skoronski, possibly the best offensive lineman in this draft. A+, easy. Moving on, 12. Now this is the first pick where I was like absolutely shocked. I had no clue what was going on. I didn't understand the pick. I don't know. I was shocked, honestly. You know, with David Montgomery and DeAndre Swift there already, the Lions don't have too many needs, but they do have needs. And there was definitely some good players still on the board here. I'm giving them a D. I just don't think it fits their needs. They already had a player in position, and they could have gone many other directions here. At 13, with the Packers, I'm going to give them a B. I think Lucas Van Ness can succeed there, and I think he fits value there at 13. So they get a B. 14, A+. They moved up. They get the last good tackle in the first round here. And quite honestly, they jumped the Jets. So they pick a good player, a position of need. And the reason they get an A+ is because Joey Porter fell out of the first round. They have the first pick in the second round. If they come away with Broderick Jones and Joey Porter Jr., which I think is a very good possibility, that's an A+ draft already. So A+ pick here, they moved up. I don't know what they gave up, but it wasn't much. And then they still have the chance to get, you know, that bloodline in Joey Porter. So that's perfect. And then at 15, the Jets were stranded there. They had to move back to get that Aaron Rodgers trade going. So they did a pick swap with the Packers. And then the Steelers traded up in front of them with the Patriots. And they were left there stranded. And they went with Will McDonald, the fourth. And I'm personally going to give this a B-. So initially I was way more confused and less optimistic about this pick. But I do think Will McDonald could succeed here. And I do think he has untapped potential. So I'm giving him a B-. Definitely some potential there. 16, with the Commanders. You know, when Christian Gonzalez is still on the board and they go Emmanuel Forbes, that confuses me a little bit. But at the same time, I like Forbes, and I like Forbes and the Commanders especially. So I'm giving them a C. Although that's mainly because of the players they picked or that were still available there, with Deonte Banks and Christian Gonzalez. With the Lions at 18, they went with Jack Campbell. At this point, I just don't know what to say with the Lions draft here. You know, they have pick 12 and they have pick, 18 now. And they went Jahmyr Gibbs and Jack Campbell. I think both of those are pretty big reaches. And I think with the capital they have this draft, they could have waited for these picks. They could have made them happen, and they still could have waited. I think they could have gotten Jahmyr Gibbs at 18. And I think Jack Campbell could have even fallen into the late half of the first round, and they could have traded up to get him. So I don't know what they're doing, but I'm going to give them a B- here. I still think Jack Campbell's a good player, and I still think the Lions can succeed with him. He's the best linebacker in the draft, so at least they got that. 19, with the Bucks, they went Kalijah Kancey. I think it's a good scheme fit, and Kalijah Kancey is undersized, but I think that there's a chance that he could be something there. So they're going to get a B+ from me. And then the Seahawks at 20, they went with Jackson Smith-Njigba, stopped the slide of JSN, and to me, that is a big steal. So they're getting an A+. They got the best cornerback. They got the best receiver. That's an A+ draft already. They don't really need to do much in the day 2 and day 3. Obviously, Seahawks fans want to see more, and you know, why not? They can do better. But they could not have done better in the first round, and that's why they got an A+ from me. And then at 21, with the Chargers, they went with Quentin Johnston. I'm going A. I like Quentin Johnston, and I think that he could have went as high as 12. And I think that he's fast enough to give them that, you know, deep threat that they wanted. At the same time, he is someone that can possibly replace Keenan Allen if they decide to move on from him next year. So it's a little bit of a future pick too. And then at 22, with the Ravens, they went with Zay Flowers. I'm going to give them a B here. And, you know, that's only because I think that there was cornerbacks on the board that they could have taken when they do need cornerback pretty badly. So I like Zay Flowers, and I like this pick a little bit more than some because they signed back Lamar. So now you're just giving Lamar another piece. You have a new offensive coordinator who's more into, you know, Passing, you got Lamar back, you got Odell, now you got Zay Flowers. You still have Rashad Bateman and Devin Duvernay, and, you know, Mark Andrews, and pretty good running backs. So I like that offense a lot. They just need to address corner in day 2. And then the Vikings at 23, they picked Jordan Addison. I like this pick, but I don't like it too much. I like the fact that they got him and they can draw some attention off of Justin Jefferson, but they also needed a cornerback, and I think that there was a good cornerback sitting there. So I'm going to give him a B-. At 24 with the Giants, I'm going to give them an A. I think Deonte Banks should have went before Forbes. And, you know, they moved up barely to get Deonte Banks. I think they moved up one spot with the Jags, honestly. So I think they thought that the Jags either were going to trade away or they thought that the Jags were going to take Deonte Banks. So they moved up, got Deonte Banks, and addressed their secondary need there. I like that. The Bills also traded up and got Dalton Kincaid, and I really like this pick. I'm giving that an A+. They steal it from the Cowboys, and they're getting probably the best tight end, the best receiving tight end in the draft. With Josh Allen and Stephon Diggs, that is just scary. And then at 26 with the Cowboys, they went with Mozzie Smith. I'm giving them an A here too. Maybe they got Dalton Kincaid stolen from them, but I think that Mozzie Smith is a good fit there, especially when they needed help on that interior defensive line. You know, now that defense looking pretty set. 27 with the Jags, they went Anton Harrison. I believe they got a 4, a 5, and a 7 for moving down 2 times. So they got their tackle, especially when, you know, I made this in my mock draft before the draft. I made this pick, not Anton Harrison, but I made a tackle pick, and I agree with it. I think that they need a tackle, especially after that Cam Robinson suspension. So, and they lost Jawan Taylor, so I'm going to give it a B. I do think Brian Branch maybe could have been a better pick here. At 28 with the Bengals, they went with Myles Murphy, and I'm giving them a B- here. I think Myles Murphy could be scary with that team, and I think he has a lot of untapped potential too. But with, you know, people like Michael Mayer, Nolan Smith, Joey Porter Jr. sitting there, Brian Branch, I think maybe one of those players that would have, you know, warranted an A. But they went Myles Murphy, and that's still a good pick. Still a good value pick too. Myles Murphy was talked to be a top 10 player at one point, so he could turn into that. So they're getting a B- from me. At 29 with the Saints, they went with Brian Bresee. And considering the fact that they didn't have a first round pick and they needed defensive tackle a lot, and Brian Bresee also used to be a top 10 worthy player mid-college football season last year. If it weren't due to injuries and other stuff, maybe he would still be that high. I think he has, you know, an insane amount of potential, and I think that getting him at 29 is somewhat of a steal. So I'm going to give the Saints a A. Next up with the Eagles, they went with Nolan Smith, A+. Shouldn't have fallen this far. Probably should have went a few picks before to the Saints, the Bengals, or even higher than that. And they got Jalen Carter and Nolan Smith now. So now Jalen Carter is, you know, set to succeed with some of his teammates around him. And the Eagles defense is once again unbelievably scary. Last pick here with the Chiefs, they went Felix Anudike-Uzomah, and they're keeping the guy in state here. I'm going to give them a B. I just think that maybe they could have gone, you know, another edge. I might have liked BJ Ojulari more. I think that it helps a lot with their defensive line, put him across George Karlaftis. Overall, I didn't really have too many low grades in this draft because I think a lot of these teams picked really well. With that being said, it's going to wrap up my grades for day 1. Super excited for day 2. I'll give you guys a mock draft in a little bit for what I think is going to happen on day 2. But yeah, I'll see you guys in a little bit.